Welcome everyone to the another episode. Today we have a Mr. Trent Carter, all the way from New Mexico, US. So he's an addiction recovery expert, entrepreneur, published author, and a host of Beyond Limits. So in this episode, we're going to learn more about Trent's journey, how he built his businesses, as well as his growing up, the recovery expedition, so how he helped other individuals on their recovery journey, as well as his newest upcoming book. We're going to talk about that and how you can to get a copy of the book as well. So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Trent to the show. Trent, welcome to the show, and how are you doing today?
Good morning, sir. Thank you for having me. I'm doing fantastic.
Yes, morning to you and it's afternoon for me. I know we are two different parts of the world, and yeah, I appreciate your time waking up super early and giving the valuable time to our audience and listeners. I appreciate that. And excited to have the conversation with you and learn a bit about yourself, your journey, and yeah, it just always excites me about people's resilience building and the ups and downs people go through, and is always inspiring. So tell us from like a very beginning. I'd like to know from your journey, like growing up as a child, like who Trent was, what your mission and vision for your future. Did you know like you're going to start your own business? How was your upbringing look like?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I grew up in a small town in Texas, actually. Not many people around. It's a little bit of a farming town. And man, I mean, I was a typical boy. I was outdoors a lot, right? I was building
Hmm.
tree houses and things like that. And my dad was always a hustler. He had his typical 9 to 5 job, but he always had some side things that he was doing to, well, for one, it was bringing in extra income and it was allowing him to provide for his family, for us to have a good life. And so I think from a very young age, that was just instilled in me, even though I didn't really know it at that time.
Right.
But as I did mature and grow older, I definitely started to have this business mindset. And for some reason, I was always drawn to science. I was always into the sciences. I was very into the body. I was really interested in bodybuilding, still am to this day. And for me, that was just a natural progression into nursing. And so I went to college at Texas Tech University there in Texas and graduated and became a registered nurse.
Mm.
And I did that for many years. I worked trauma, I worked ICU, I worked some contract positions, I worked all over. Anyways, went back to school to become a nurse practitioner. And to be honest, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do once I graduated and got my license to become a nurse practitioner. But fortunately, I had a little bit of exposure to some patients that were struggling with addiction while I was doing clinical rotations. And again, I had no clue it would lead me to where I am today, but ultimately that's what I do. And so now I've opened multiple clinics here in the state of New Mexico, and we're treating and serving thousands of patients that struggle with substance abuse and mental health.
Yeah. That's a great journey, and obviously like from coming from the background of like being a nurse to like working with the recovery and everything, so which is like a great thing. Is not only like as a professional you're just making people life in difference and also changing their lives in a better way. So what do you guys exactly do in your the facilities, like is it guidance, consultation, like treatments?
Great question. Yeah, treatment for sure, and as well as the counseling aspect that comes with that. So I like to say we're full service. We're A to Z. So
Mm,
whether it's someone that is maybe not even ready to begin that journey of sobriety because it's scary and they just don't know, and maybe they've struggled for decades and they don't know what it looks like on the other side, right? So that could just be an educational session. Once someone is ready to take that next step, we would help through the detox and withdrawal process, which often is a major barrier because it's scary and it's very uncomfortable, especially if they've ever gone through it before. They're often terrified to go through it again. And then again, helping them through that detox process, keeping them safe, making it much more comfortable for them. And then now we're on the road to sobriety. And so maintaining that, right? We're looking for long-term abstinence to get someone off of the chosen drug for a couple of weeks. While that's fantastic, I want much more than that. We want months, years, life changing from now on. And so then that's what the goal transitions to. And there's a lot of steps to make that happen, but we facilitate all along the way.
Mm, yeah, very exciting. And so, like, did you start it on your own? Everything from like, or did you co-found it with someone when you started your facilities?
Nope, all on my own. I was told it was a very, very bold
Yeah.
and ambitious project. So prior to opening the first location, I didn't just jump into it. I did quite a bit of research and analysis is what I refer to, shopping the market and seeing what my competition would be, seeing what resources are available for these patients, which the answer was next to none. That's why I ended up opening my first clinic, Renew Health. And I remember speaking with a local physician, and yeah, his word was bold. He's like, I think it's a fantastic idea, but very, very bold. And so there was a lot of, I'm not going to say negativity at all, but doubt. I think there was quite a bit of doubt, like, I don't know, man. I hope this works out for you, but I'm not confident that it will. And I think that that is so typical for for anybody in life, right? And so if you're someone that's looking to begin the sobriety journey, oftentimes it's faced with doubt, especially from those that are close to you, because maybe they've seen you struggling for the past 20 years and nothing has worked previously. Or to
Yeah.
talk about a completely different um, industry here, a completely different approach. I mean, it could be someone that's wanting to go and open their business for the first time, right? Oftentimes, you're breaking the mold. You're doing something that's not the norm within your maybe your social circle or those that are around you or loved ones. And so it's a scary thing. And I think that oftentimes you're met with doubt. And my advice would be don't listen to them, man.
Mm,
If it's something that you're interested in doing, look, I think that the necessary due diligence must happen. I'm not trying to overshadow that. But as long as the preparation's there, the data's been put together, you have a solid plan, you understand it's going to take some time, then by all means, go ahead and do it.
yeah. And you opened up your first location, I think it's 2022, just after COVID, right?
Yes, that's correct. We opened the beginning of 2022. I remember it took 6 weeks to the day for me to get my first patient.
Mm,
So I think that that's also, an important topic to touch on is, look, I didn't already have this patient volume. I didn't have, well, I know that whenever I open, I've got roughly 100 patients that are come over, or I already had this patient population from a previous job that I was working. I didn't have any of that. I just knew that there was a need and I
yeah.
trusted the process. And I felt that if I built it, they would come. And it took 6 weeks for me to get my first patient to come through the doors, which was a little nerve-wracking at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, especially for a health, isn't it? Like you would believe like as soon as you open the door, like people's gonna be queuing up, or like you'd be booked up for the next couple of months or so, like maybe before anyone comes in. But life's surprising, isn't it? Even though for like a healthcare.
Absolutely. In theory, that's the way we all want it to work, right? When we envision it in our mind, it's, oh man, there's such a need. There's so many people that are struggling. They're just going to flood to you. And I think that again could be in any industry, right? If you look, guys, if you're looking to start a business and you're wanting to make some money or you're wanting to have a side hustle, provide a service. Find it's supply and demand. Find something that someone is needing and that you can be that solution, provide that service. And
Yeah.
I did not start my clinics to make money. I mean, I started it to help people in need. That being said, I do have a family to support and I went through a lot of schooling, so of course I need to draw some kind of salary there. And that's all I'm doing. I found a patient population in need with a lack of resources, and I became that service provider for them.
Yeah. And how's your planning wise? Like when it's before you starting opening the door for like a patients, like how long prior to that, like you had to plan out for getting the location, getting funds ready, and taking the leap of faith, like starting with like it's going to work out. Like how long like did you have to plan everything?
Yeah, great question. I would say I started planning approximately, well, I'll say that the idea, the little spark of idea that I had was approximately 6 months prior to us opening. And at first it was just a thought. And then as the weeks went on, I got a little more serious about it. And that's when I started to do my research. And by research, I mean I'm looking at statistics for overdose and drug rates in the county and in the area. I'm trying to find, again, what competition is out there, right? What other resources are out there? And then boots on the ground. I'm knocking on doors. I'm going into places and getting a feel for it. I'm asking the questions. I'm networking. I'm making connections. I'm driving around town and putting my own eyes out there and see, okay, look, this is the problem that I've identified, and this is the service that I want to provide. So the data supports it, word of mouth supports it, but can I actually see this with my own eyes? And so I would say that that idea happened approximately 6 months prior to me opening the doors. And then about 3 months to opening doors is when I was all hands on deck and really, really serious about it. And keep in mind, I still had a full-time job outside of
Mm.
this.
Okay.
And so, because I had a family to support, right? And so there
Yeah.
was sleepless nights, there was a lot of hours, and that's just a sacrifice that had to go into it. But, honestly, it was a lot of fun.
So you still was working as a nurse practitioner like a while you opened your first facility, right?
Absolutely, yes. I didn't have any patience.
Yeah.
So, and to open a facility and everything that comes along with that is not cheap. And so
Yeah.
money was going out, no money was coming in. I continued to work my other job, which was a contract position.
Mm.
So I had flexible scheduling, which was nice. But yes, I mean, I was working 6 days a week and long days at that, not just your typical 9 to 5, while trying to get this clinic up and going. So first of all, if you open a clinic, you have to be present, meaning that
Yeah.
you're there to be able to see the patients. I'm doing a ton of grassroots work. I'm boots on the ground. I'm going out, I'm giving presentations, I'm educating, I'm meeting and greeting people. I'm trying to spread the word. I'm essentially being a sales rep for my own
Mm.
company.
Yeah.
And then also working the contract position that actually was paying me at that time.
So were you on your own in the first few months, or like did you hire anyone else alongside with you?
I hired one other individual that was a medical assistant. She was to pull double duty, meaning she was a medical assistant, but also playing a receptionist, so she could help with phones and things like that. And she's bilingual. I am not. And where we live, the demographic, there's a lot of Spanish speaking individuals. And
Right.
so I need to have that capability. So it was just me and one other person at first.
Okay. And how long after like are you opening up, like you able to go full time and quitting your job?
By the time I went full time and was able to quit my job, it was maybe a year and a half, actually. Now, there was a transition, right? So at first, I'm open 1 day a week, then to 2 days a week, then 3 days a week. And so I would work less on my contract position as I scaled up on my company. But I would say that that took a solid year and a half.
Yeah, that's a long, long time for like running both, right?
At that point in time, it's what I did, right? That was my mindset. I was very determined.
Yeah.
Anytime I was met with an obstacle, I didn't see it as that. I just saw it as, okay, now I need to figure this out. Whether we go
Yeah.
above it, below it, around it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that whatever I was trying to achieve or accomplish at that point in time was done. I just need to figure it out. Now, with
Mm.
that said, I can tell you my wife was stressed because I was gone a lot, working long hours. And then while I'm at home, I'm working too, because all the little things that come along with opening a clinic and the marketing and putting together flyers and trying to hire people and fire people and again researching, learning how to start, grow, and establish a business. I had never done that before. So there was a little bit of the metaphor, what is it, drinking water from a fire hose. It was quite a bit, but what that did was it caused me to jump in with both feet, and I completely immersed myself with this. And I would not change that because I had to figure out every little step, every little minute detail myself. And
Yeah.
why I'm touching on that in this conversation is because now I have full teams, right? I have a lot of staff, and my role has changed quite a bit compared to 3 or 4 years ago. But because I know all these little minute details and the systematic approach on how to make things work, I can troubleshoot. I can logically think through the process. Whereas if I've only been at this, let's call it CEO type level, I wouldn't know how to troubleshoot certain things that my receptionist or my medical assistant are seeing, or work through a scheduling issue or hiring of a nurse practitioner and what all comes along with that. So I wore all the hats to begin with, many hats, and obviously my role has changed now. But I think that that makes me a better leader and provider for the company.
Yeah, definitely. How's your first couple of years looks like for you? Like you Yeah, obviously you mentioned first 1.5 years you was juggling through like a both role as a nurse practitioner as well as like a working on your practice. And obviously as a business perspective, I just want to know like first 2 years as a business owners, how was your uh business wise managing team as well as like your growing marketing? You have to put like a different hats, like how's your learning process as well as building something from scratch.
Yeah, so I was the lead on all those different processes that you just mentioned, and many, many more. I mean, accounting and billing, you name it. My learning process was figure it out, man. I mean, I think that if you devote, so first of all, if you have the interest, right? Like genuinely, you're interested in learning something, and if you'll devote time towards that, it's amazing how quickly you can figure things out. And I'm talking about consistently, right? 6, 7 days a week, essentially every single day. And so, yeah, at first, I didn't know very much about marketing at all. That's not what I went to school for. I had no exposure to it really. But you start learning, you start asking questions, and all of a sudden you're looking at what other people are doing and you're maybe kind of piggybacking off of their ideas. One thing for me is like, I like to travel down a paved road, meaning I don't feel the need to be a pioneer. If someone else has already done it, I'd like to look at what they did, figure out how I can do it faster, better, cheaper, more efficiently. And so that was my marketing approach. And that's been my approach to a lot of things, actually. Um, as far as other things, I mean, let's say accounting, well, start figuring it out, start learning from people. There's tons and tons of free and valuable, really, really good information online, whether it's YouTube or it's looking through blogs or Reddit, things like that. And then you start to compare and contrast, right? You find
Yeah.
at first, maybe you're looking at 10 different sources and you kind of compare it, and then you narrow that down to two or three sources, and that's kind of your go-to. And then I think the final step is implementation. Like you're never going to get it right on the first try. You implement, you fail. And this is one of those barriers we just talked about a few minutes ago. You don't just stop. You figure out how to make it work. Change it. Okay, well I tried that. It failed, but this little portion of that over there was kind of a success. So how do we light that fire over there? How do we make that better? And then you try that over and over and over, and the next thing, you start to nail it down and you get better at it.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, as far as marketing, a couple weeks ago, I went to a conference and a lady that I had never met before, excuse me, I had never met her before, but sorry, man, clear my throat real quick.
Yeah, yeah, no worries.
Anyways, I had never met her before, but she had certainly heard of Renew Health. She's actually referred patients to us. At this point, our reputation is preceding us because we are starting to become the go-to and the standard for addiction treatment here in New Mexico. So, anyways, I meet her and we get to talking. She said, "Hey, I just got to ask you, who is your marketing director?" And I looked at her, and before I even said anything, she said, "Did you put your marketing plan together?" I said, "Yeah, I did actually." She said, "It is the most impressive marketing plan I have ever seen. It's just incredible." And she kind of went on into detail that I won't bore you with right now. And I thought, man, that feels good because I never had any true guidance. I learned and I changed, and then I started hiring these teams and would learn from them. And if they served me the way I wanted to, I would keep them around. Otherwise, I'd fire them and move on to the next.
Yeah.
And from that, now, I mean, I don't consider myself an expert by any means, but I'm pretty knowledgeable and I have a pretty good grasp of what needs to happen at this point. So I think that's a testament to anything. I am educated in medicine, yet now I'm getting touted for my marketing abilities. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely. Like we have to figure out like a different area of our expertise, and you try and then you learn and then you grow and then you don't even recognize yourself like the person you used to be and compared to now, and it just changes. And I had a similar kind of background as you. Like I had a my first business was a restaurant business. We opened up, me and my brother, and then we run that for 4 years, and it wasn't fulfilling. And the long hours and everything, I just like it didn't want it to be there after a couple of years. So I made the transition from like being a restaurant owner to like getting into marketing space. So I had to learn everything like after coming from restaurant work like at 12 midnight 1 a.m. in the morning, because the restaurant works it finished a very late night. And And till like a morning, next day morning, like 7, 8 o'clock, I'm learning, working on the client work and things like that. I had to do that for a couple of years before I was able to sell the place and then completely uh, move from it and going full time on the marketing business I have now. And he was starting from scratch from everything because coming from like I was being a chef, I know about cooking and running a restaurant to going for like a marketing space. It was like complete new thing. And looking back now, it's been like 13 years and it's just like how things been changed over the years. And I know more marketing about food itself and, and just it's just fascinating. And you know, see like sometimes like you start with something and you just being end up somewhere else or something else, and it just quite interesting to see how God has a plan for you and how you shape up your life as well with the work and dedication you bring in.
That's exactly right, man. That's a great story. I think you got to roll with the punches, right? And
Yeah.
give what life gives you. I think control the controllables, meaning the things that you can control,
Mm.
then by all means you need to. And then we have a way to kind of steer this journey we call life and to what we want to be. Um, I think that, where we are in our life is a combination of our decisions. So if you make consistent, repeated good decisions, that's going to put you where you're at in your life. If you make a lot of really poor choices, and then over time, years or whatever, then you look up and you kind of question, how did I get here? Well, that's why. It was the decisions repeatedly, consistently that were made, whether they're for good or bad.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, let's talk about your newest book is coming out. Is that called The Recovery Tool Belt?
Yes, sir. The Recovery Tool Belt.
Yeah.
It'll be out and live basically everywhere, Amazon, books.com, wherever it is you want to purchase your book from in 2 weeks.
Yeah, congratulations, your book launch. And just
Thank you very much.
yeah, very welcome. And tell us a little bit about what's your book about and what's my audience or anyone listening can expect it from the book. Like, what's the lesson there, story there, or guidance there?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for asking for letting me talk about it, man. So I'm really excited. This is my first book to publish. So again, the Recovery Tool Belt, and it's for the individual that is struggling with substance abuse and addiction. It's for their loved one that maybe themselves they're not struggling, but again, they've got someone that's very close to them that they care about that's struggling, or even just for anybody that, hey, you're seeing and hearing fentanyl all over the news or seeing it in the community and you want to become better educated on the topic. That's who this book is for. So really anybody that has an interest, whether they're living the life or just have questions about it when it comes to addiction. So this book is written to intentionally be a very easy read. It is not dry. There's not a lot of big words and medical jargon in there. So it's an easy read for anybody. There's a lot of patient testimonies that are in there to back up what I'm saying. But essentially, it's tips, it's tricks, it's guidance, it's evidence based and science backed approaches to achieve long-term sobriety. We talk about stigma and how to change that, how to make a lasting impact, not just not just for someone that's struggling with addiction, but how to truly make an impact in, the state or the country, the area that you're in for the greater good. All of that goes into this book. And I'm really excited and I truly think it's going to save lives.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and addiction is such a big thing, and I think it's like it's continuously growing about so many different things like people take on nowadays, especially with the young generation. The more depression, the anxiety is piling up. People are going into this kind of way to like calm themselves up or like just escaping, right? Like in the long term, it's not helping. It's just like affecting them more in a way. And people are chasing, I think, like more they seeing on the social media, other people are succeeding in their life, the fame, the millions views. It's just like affecting them more and more, and people couldn't take it anymore. Like, so what people are listening, like those people are some of them they probably know someone like who got kind of addiction. They're young people, their family members, friends, or like people in the community. They know someone. How they can help someone with them addiction? Like, is there? like they need to consult with a professional like yourself, or is there a way like they can talk it out and guide them through them?
Yeah, great question. So there's no one right way. And again, I go into this in the book in pretty great detail there. But the answer is, look, if you're struggling yourself, or again, if you're a loved one that's struggling and you want to help them, what do you do? Well, start educating yourself, right? What resources are near me? What resources are I'm sorry, online that could be used for this given individual that's struggling. So everybody's scenario is a little different. Everybody's, based on geographical location, what's around you. If you're in a big metropolitan, a big city versus a rural area, which is actually where I'm at out here in New Mexico, the resources and availability are going to be different. And so I go into this in the book and how you can still find sobriety and make a change in your life, and it all starts with simply being active, right? I think first you got to realize, hey, maybe there's a problem and maybe I want to make a change. But then what comes next? Well, you've got to be active. It's just like we talked about earlier for business. You mentioned people that are watching success on TikTok and they're feeling down on themselves because of the level of what seems like to be success for that person that has tons and tons of views versus someone else that's just sitting on the couch watching it and kind of feeling down on themselves. Well, the difference is that person that has all those views is putting in the work. They're active. They took a chance on themselves. They put in countless hours behind the scenes that no one recognized prior to getting to that level of success that they're at. So you've just got to start. And at first, it's a slow start, but this is where persistence and consistency comes in. And over time, maybe days, months, years, decades, but if you will stay persistent, stay consistent, again, make the right choices that are only going to better you instead of harm your situation, then it's just impossible to not wind up in a better situation.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that, brother. So I have one last question for you before we wrap up here, which is if anyone wants to pursue their dream, they want to start their own business and not sure shall they take the leap or not, and it feels scary, like how you're going to advise them to starting their own thing.
I love that question. Um, there's a little, I guess, quote or phrase that I've coined for this exact scenario, and it's learn, act, fail, repeat. So if you begin to learn about something and then you act on it, again, taking that action, oftentimes you're going to fail, and that's okay. But if you'll repeat that, eventually that turns into learn, act, succeed, repeat. So by failing, we're pushing our boundaries to which we can learn from, right? And eventually we succeed and we'll learn from that. And then the success just seems to come easier. So
Mhm.
it's important to know that the failure is not the end. Okay. It's just a temporary obstacle. It's part of the process. If we fail, it means we're pushing our limits. We're stepping outside of our comfort zone. And every single time we do that, we gain something, whether it's insight, resilience, wisdom. And eventually those lessons compound and failure turns into success. But I think it's also important to know that even success is not the finish line. It's just the next opportunity to learn and act again. So again, that cycle, learning, acting, failing, and succeeding is how we grow, whether it's recovery, leadership, business, life.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that, brother. So we are nearly coming to end of this podcast. So before we wrap up here, if anyone wants to learn more about yourself or your business, where's the best place to find you?
So you can go to my personal website. It's thetrentcarter.com. That's thetrentcarter.com. On there, you could learn a little bit about my journey. I've got a personal blog, podcast that I'll be launching soon. You can find the book and where to purchase it on there. You could also go to my website, Renew Health, which you could get through to my personal website, or just go to renewhealth.com. And that's all about our clinic. There's tons of educational and informational resources that's on that website. So if in fact you are someone that's struggling or you're a loved one, there's a lot of free educational resources on the website renewhealth.com that could get you started. But if you're serious about taking that next step, I'm telling you, this book that's about to come out, it's a great place to start. And to my knowledge, there's not another book out there like it.
Yeah, right. That's great. Thank you so much for your time today. I wish you very best of luck with everything you're doing with your new business as well as the book launch. And I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate yours. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you. So that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode with Mr. Carter today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If anyone wants to learn more about him, he can visit his website. And I'm going to put all the links on the description for you to find him easily. Till then, talk to you in the next episode. Take care.